finally did it, Chris. We're topical.
Welcome to Old Moon Radio. This is Chris along with Ian Mills, and today we're talking about Colter memories on Empties. Ian, do you want to tell us a little bit about this album?
Yeah, so Colter Wall is a Canadian singer-songwriter and country guitarist from Saskatchewan, Canada. He's been a favorite of mine since his EP Imaginary Appalachia back in 10 years ago now, 2015. This album just came out last Thursday, I believe. Memories and Empties is his fifth studio album following Little Songs from 2023 and Western Swing and Waltzes, which I think was a mutual favorite of ours back in pandemic era 2020.
Right. I think I accidentally said memories on empties, so I already started off the episode rough. Memories and empties. Thank you for clarifying that, Ian. Yeah, so as you said, this is his studio album. I thought it's kind of surprising. I mean, five is a good amount for where he's at in his career. I know there's some artists, especially in his genre, like Charlie Crockett, who seems to release an album every month. So it's a little different than like mainstream pop music, where you get maybe one album like every 2 years. But Coulter already in deep with his career. He's kind of a veteran of the music scene at this point. And yeah, I really enjoyed his past music. You're probably a bigger Colter Wall fan than I am, just because you're a lot more familiar with his music than I am. But I really like him, and I really enjoyed this album, and we'll definitely get into it here. Just another quick note: this was recorded at RCA Studio A in Nashville with his longtime band, produced by himself and Patrick Lyons. So just wanted to read off some of the credits there. Ian, do you feel ready to get into this album?
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that this is like sort of getting into his career because I thought this one was a little different than the previous albums he's put out.
Ooh.
Pretty quick, 10 songs, a little over 33 minutes. Definitely shorter than what I expected and shorter than what we are normally used to in the jam band area. But I thought there was a lot of really interesting songs on this and the album as a whole.
Yeah, I also noticed, and I don't know if it's this way across his career. I'm guessing it is just by the structure and style of his songs, but some of the songs, it's like one verse, one chorus, another verse, and the same chorus. Like, they're just like almost like little poems in some of them. They're not like these long, extended lyrical masterpieces. They're somewhat simple, but they're very effective.
Yeah, so one thing off the jump that stuck out to me was this album was almost entirely his own writing. And I don't know if it's more like a Canadian folk thing or sort of like the area of country and that he does. But yeah, like you said, chorus and then one or two verses, and then maybe like playing like a little extended outro
Yeah.
was pretty consistent across all these songs. Maybe something to dive into in another episode.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's get into it and talk about some of the songs. We start off with 1800 Miles. This was a single off the album, and it's a pretty upbeat introduction to the album. Great background vocals I noticed on the chorus, and I got two names for that: Nolene Hoffman or Nikki Lake. I found the album credits on Wikipedia, so if I'm missing it or getting it wrong, my apologies. But I thought the background vocals were really nice. And I just, before I turn it over to you, just two other things I wanted to note. The lyrics: if I ever was for sale, I've never sold, and you ain't cool if you're not counterculture weird. I thought were good lyrics that I wanted to point out as pretty interesting.
Yeah, so this one, like you said, the single and how he promoted the album back in
Mhm.
August, he made an Instagram post of like a swinging sign that said 1800 miles or 1800 miles to Music Row, obviously a reference to the song and the distance from his house from Nashville and from Music Row in Nashville. And he said that management suggested getting a billboard to promote the upcoming single, like it's commonly done for country albums in Nashville. And he said a cheaper option was selected. I think my favorite line from the song was it's Tyson songs on the fiddle and guitar, a reference to we'll get into later. And the pedal steel man drives a real mean bar, who
Yeah, I
is
like that.
his name as well. Brady Henry on pedal steel.
I was gonna call him out later in the album actually, so I'm glad you got to it. Yeah, he was really good throughout the album on the pedal steel. But yeah, this is a cool introduction to the album. It's more upbeat. And the last thing I wanted to note on it is that He can really pick it on the guitar. I was watching a performance, a live performance of this song on YouTube where he's sitting on the back of like a wagon or something. And I was like, wow, he can really play guitar. It's not just like cowboy chords, it's like little riffs in between. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, like oh, maybe a little different than bluegrass, but his fills are still really good and
Yeah,
playing. As like now he plays a lot as a band, but I think he's also very competent in just playing with a guitar and kind of filling out the sound just with one instrument.
exactly. Yeah. The second song we get is My Present Just Gets Past Me. This is has kind of an easygoing sway to it, but it's a sadder song. It's a good heartache song. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, well, that's what I mentioned too. A slower song and also but still a little swinging, which I think is a common feature of this song and the next couple songs after it. My
Mm,
present just gets past me, and my future seems always to be a day away. Definitely some sadder lyrics, and the first song that 1800 Miles was released as a single, so we've had it for a couple months. Is the first new song on the album, definitely setting the tone in terms of all these songs kind of relate to each other, and I'll get into a little bit that as they come up, but
yeah.
definitely concerning time and retrospection and thinking about his past. I think is a common theme on this album.
Yes, it definitely is. We go into the next song, Like the Hills. It might not be my favorite song off the album. I'll share which one I think that is, but this may have been the most like fun one in my opinion. I really like the Hills. It's pretty upbeat and a good tune.
Yeah, so I think this song and the preceding song kind of relate. They're both swinging, I think, in this pretty similar way. Although this one is definitely a lot faster tempo. Still concerning time, talking about the season and weather changing, but the hill and then we. I think there's a lot of kind of like vague. Uh, what's the right word for like a group, like a small grouping, like you and we. So the hill and we are still here, kind of contrasting the two to the two objects. But yeah, I like the song. I definitely have my favorite from the album, so I'm curious if it's the same one.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited. I want to get into it now because I wonder if it is the same one. I think my favorite wouldn't, I don't know how to say it, but I wouldn't have expected it to be my favorite. I don't know if that makes any sense, but we'll get into it. Memories and Empties is the next song. I enjoyed this one. Of course, it's the title track to the album, so it holds it together thematically. I just wanted to point out there was really beautiful harmonica towards the end of this song by Jake Groves, I believe. And then there's a sweeping string section right after that by, I believe it's Matthew Mink, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, on the fiddle. So the instrumentation in this song to kind of segue it out, and that is a theme throughout the album, kind of some of these longer outros with just the instruments sounded pretty cool.
Yeah, I noticed the same things. I like the harmonica, and I think it was the piano in this song as well, which would have been
Mm,
Josh Schilling. Um, Yeah, so I thought it was really interesting that it was another slow song. So we've kind of are like alternating um, slow, fast, slow song with another kind of like vague pronoun saying another. I called it a lot of songs on this album are you songs. So it's talking about you, replacing memories with empties again. Kind of alludes to drinking and also like what memories and empties that the album name kind of corresponds to. Um,
mhm.
yeah, so interesting song.
Yeah, it's very much like a saloon feel type album. A lot of bottle imagery and drinking away memories and the pain, which I guess goes with the title Memories and Empties, but that's the theme throughout lots of the songs. So, speaking of which, we go into the song, It's Getting So, parentheses, that a
Yeah,
man can't go into town just to have him
yeah.
a
If
drink.
if there's any doubt on what that means in terms of drinking,
I thought this was kind of a reckless song in terms of the character in the song behaving kind of recklessly, as well as like the instruments. It was very loose and fun. Again, going back to the slow, fast theme that you noted. I'm glad you pointed that out because I hadn't put that together, but it's right in front of us. And really cool pedal steel on this song is where I was going to call that out. So this is very honky tonk Western feeling, in my opinion.
Yeah, so like I was gonna say too, you picked out that like this is another fast song, keeping the pattern. Um, uh, have been all but knocked back and drunk down. I call my ex-wife, tell her how great my life is. How could she drive me? And could she drive me home from town? So this is the first uh maybe clue that the we and you may be him in the context of this album and ex-wife talking about it gets so like they're like all these things are like oh like a problem that talk about getting home from the bar and getting by the cops and the mule deer.
Hmm.
Really like the solo on this. And it also made me think of like the context of the song made me think of the one battle after another meme that I don't know if you've seen the movie or
Oh,
not.
I don't think I
Um,
want to see the movie. I haven't seen the meme.
you can post the meme as a short for this episode talking about
Uh,
well, getting back home from the bar. So I was like, well, how'd you get back? You drove to the bar. It's like, yeah, you know, I know how to drunk drive, honey, is
oh,
basically
gotcha.
so that's what made me think of this song.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, a fun song, but like I said, kind of a reckless feel to it, which goes along with what you were just saying. Next, we go into Living by the Hour. I like this one a lot. It's not my favorite. We haven't gotten there yet. Have we gotten there
There's
yet for
only
you?
like four songs left, so we're
Yeah.
getting close.
Oh, I hope it's the same. Living by the Hour, though, I saw this in a review when I was reading about the album, so I can't take credit for it, but I agree with it heavily that it kind of has a Marty Robbins feel to it. There's like a sway back and forth. I know we've kind of mentioned that swing, but this was more like a slow sway. And the way he sings the line, I'll just keep living by the hour, kind of has like the vocal inflections of a Marty Robbins. So it kind of brought me back to that gunfighters and ballads type feel.
Yeah, so definitely this one stood out to me that it broke the tempo pattern that I called this one medium pace.
Yeah.
And as such kind of like breaks out of the first half of the album in terms of how the pacing was structured. It's interesting point that you bring up Marty Robbins, obviously like um covered on What's It Swings and Waltzes with Big Iron. Like that
Right.
was one of the songs that if you know Colter Wall kind of casually, you probably know his Big Iron cover. Just with his voice, it was a good pair. And obviously, well, I don't know obviously, but I in my opinion, that he does take a lot of and is inspired by a lot of these like 70s and 80s country artists, including Marty Robbins. So
Hmm.
I definitely think that's a natural fit. I really like the song, like like you said, like close to my favorite, but not quite my favorite.
Hmm.
I really like the each day has such a power. They can go from picking stones to picking flowers. I guess I'll keep living by the hour.
Mm.
And this song, in conjunction with the next song, reminded me of another 70s, not country, but maybe country. I don't know. I'll get your opinion. And I'll bring that up on the next song. But yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Curious to know. We go into 4/4 time, and this, Ian, was my favorite song on the
This was
record.
also my favorite song. Yeah, I knew it was going to be the same.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, it stand out for sure. I think I said earlier the reason why I wouldn't have expected it to be my favorite is because I'd consider it a slower song. Um, but I really enjoy the lyrics and how it's sung. The first verse comparing the beautiful natural melody of like a bird versus his own song. And then later the lyrics. Sun beds down to kiss the plains goodnight. The air takes on a coolness. The west winds start to blow. It's pushing up the rain clouds into sight. And how could I try now to tell it's, oh my God, I wrote down like the whole verse. So just that whole verse. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I realized how long it was taking. But just a really good, it felt kind of like Chris Christopherson or Johnny Cash feel to me.
Okay. Yeah, so my first note listening to this album for the first time was starring this song as like this was my favorite song.
Hmm.
The first thing I thought about. Um, I got a lot to say about this song. I guess first I'll say like in conjunction with the last song. So if you take the titles "Living by the Hour" and then 4/4 Time, the first thing that jumped out to me was the sorry.
You're good.
Um, Living and Dying in Three-Quarter Time, the Jimmy Buffett album, which I don't
Oh,
know why. Like just kind of similarity, but that was the first thing I thought of. I don't know. Would you call that would you call Jimmy Buffett a country artist? I guess so, in more like a pop country way, but
yeah, I
um,
would say,
definitely
yeah,
not like the Marty Robbins and Chris Christopherson and what I think Colter like is more clearly a lineage
right.
of, but interesting that like another 70s country maybe album comes
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Um, first part of the song, leaning on the T-post, my eyes up in the sky. What I meant when I'm meant to be splicing broken wire. A reference to him being, I don't know if he owns a ranch or if he just works as a ranch hand, but he does
Hmm.
work as a ranch hand. I always used to. I know it's come up before in his interviews and just
Yeah,
talk. Um, and then talking about like the birds, like uh, uh, can croon it out so strong, and when I shouldn't be comparing his handiwork with mine, I hope the Lord doesn't mind for
hmm,
time. I thought it was very interesting how this came up in terms of comparing his songs and songwriting to Birds. I think I'm surprised he didn't bring it up, was comparing it to Gilda Lily off of Billy String's Highway
no,
Prayers,
yeah,
very probably the most popular song off that album, which is talking about birds and taking inspiration of the melody and the songwriting from birds, which is also like a very common, I think,
it's a
folk
great
and
connection.
motif. But yeah, great song. I think it is the highlight of this album, and I'm not surprised that we agree on that.
Yeah, it's the longest track on the album too.
Oh, yeah.
I, yeah, my one critique is I kind of wish this was the album closer. I think it has a nice outro, a nice long outro that would serve as like a nice quiet down from the album. I like the album closer, and we'll get to that one, an interesting song on the album, for a reason we'll get into. But yeah, I thought 4/4 Time could have been a good closer. We go into The Longer You Hold On. There's a fun intro riff that kind of brings things back up a little bit. It's kind of a medium paced song, but oh, this is where I noted that Colter can kind of pick the guitar pretty well. Not, yeah, not in a bluegrass sense like Billy Strings or anything, but just those little fills. The Longer You Hold On was another single off the album. And an interesting quote from Colter. He said, "It's about waiting for the other shoe to drop, just the old country theme of nearing the end of a fading love and knowing it," which is something that everyone relates to at some point in life. So I thought that was a nice explanation of the song because you don't always get the song explanations so outright straightforward.
Yeah, so I like this song. Like, it's very interesting. This is going back. So we had like the slow pace, fast pace, and then the living by the hour and 4/4 time being like medium paced, in my opinion. This goes back to
Yeah,
fast pace. It's another you song, like obviously about a love. Talking about, I can tell you're just trying to choose your moment. The longer you hold on, the further I'll fall. Um, and there's something there, like, and maybe we should have waited longer to record the pod. I could have thought about it a little longer. But it felt like 4/4 time was like the epiphany, like seeing the birds and thinking about songwriting, and kind of pulling out of like maybe the more self-sabotaging, like intertwined with love. And this is like waiting for the break moment, like waiting until like you're finally free to move on. So I felt like maybe like 4/4 time was like the peak of this, and now we're sort of at like the post climax resolution to what this album's about.
okay, Back to Me is the second to last song on the album and the last original song on the album. I don't know if you caught that the last song, Summer Wages, is a cover. I'm actually unfamiliar with that song, but we'll get into that in a moment. Back to Me was another single, and I really like the lines. I think it's the chorus. I know my mind will come back to me, like the songs that my mama used to sing. I'll remember who I am. If you grab a hold of my hand, I'll recall you are my all and everything. Kind of interesting because we go through kind of the story of this album and the heartbreak and the longing and drinking it away. This is kind of like a reaching back out almost, in my opinion.
Yeah, so like that was what I was going to get to from the last song. Like it feels like we're trending towards like like the resolution of what the first half of the album was about. I called this a medium slow song, so like I don't know if we're fully back on the pattern of fast slow, like the last song being fast. It's like I don't know if it's fully slow enough to count as slow. Definitely another You song. Don't know if it's the same You. Could be a little different. Um, I think between you and me, we copied we wrote down the lyrics to like the entire song. Because I really liked I don't know if it's the verse. Hold on. Is it the verse? I didn't write that down. Um uh no, it's one of the or it is a verse, it's not the chorus.
Mm,
Not so long ago I'd throw my leg around life and I'd stay with each day and spur 'em down. But that age is coming on and the memories won't stay around. Um, I definitely a reference to what the album is titled, Memories and Empties. It feels like if I grab you a hold of my if you grab a hold of my hand, I'll recall you are my all and everything. Definitely
mm.
seems like a positive trend of kind of coming out of the first half of the album and sort of like the what he was feeling before, what the album was feeling before.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. We go into the last song, Memories, or sorry, not on Memories and Empties, Summer Wages. And this is a cover of, what was it, Ian Tyson, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's
I'm
Tyson
not
songs
from,
on the fiddle and guitar.
what's that?
It's Tyson songs on the fiddle and guitar from
Oh,
1800 Miles.
oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so I'm not familiar with it, obviously, as you can tell.
Because you're not Canadian. Because so Ian Tyson is a Canadian country musician. This is off his '87 album Cowboyography, which went platinum in Canada.
Gotcha.
Obviously, Colter being a Canadian country musician, like definitely played a big part in his life, I imagine.
Yeah, that shows my lack of knowledge there. But yeah, I thought this was a really nice cover. So now I'm curious to know the original song. And that's cool. That's from another Canadian artist. I'm sure he's been an inspiration then for Colter if he's covering him on an album. How do you feel this fits in with the storyline of Memories and Empties?
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you. Well, first, like Colter plays the song a lot. He first played it live in 2022 and has played it
Okay.
18 times since. And that's from shout out Celis FM. I was just curious of how much he played it. I know this personally from Colter from his Western AF YouTube video. Shout out Western AF. I love their channel. From 2020 that he played this on that channel. So like when this came out on the album, like I knew this wasn't like an original for this album, that this is a song he's been covering for a while. Like I said in the beginning, it's interesting. It's the only cover on the album. He usually covers a couple songs. He previously covered Ian Tyson on his prior album, Little Songs, with the Coyote and the Cowboy. And also on that album was What Accents Evangelina, which was, I think, one of my favorite Culture covers. And then on Western Swing and Waltzes, he covered Marty Robbins, Stan Jones, Louis Peterson, a bunch of other traditional songs. So I think it's pretty significant that this is the only cover on the album, and it's also the last song. But I do agree with what you said earlier on that it felt like a kind of weird add-on to the album of like a very strong personal and songwriting, and also it felt just maybe there was a better song to have as the album closer.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought 4 Time was just a really nice song to close it out. But I don't think this was a bad one by any means. I really enjoyed it still. So, Ian, what do you think of this album in terms of his discography compared to some of his other releases?
No, I think it's really you made a good point in the beginning of this felt like a more mature album. I got
Hmm.
that sense too, that a lot of his albums previously have been not necessary compilations, but like we said, the Summer Rages, like a lot of covers, a lot of traditional songs. It felt like more songs that were important in the time they wanted to put together for an album. I think this felt more like a album with a story and a common theme throughout. Maybe not reflective very specifically to his life. I don't know, but definitely
Hmm.
felt reflective to some aspects of life, um, where the albums relate to each other as they go through and follow progression where maybe there is like a new outcome coming out of these last albums or last songs than the songs prior on the album. Felt
Yeah.
very similar to like a Vincent Neil Emerson album, who I know Colter and him are pretty close in terms of album arrangement. So it felt like a more mature album, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And so one I really liked, I give it maybe like a 4 out of 5. I
Hmm.
think if my negatives for this album is that it's very short. I mean, this isn't necessarily like I mean we come from the jam band space where like we're used to maybe pushing an hour or something or 45 minutes.
Hmm.
It felt very quick. Um, it felt I mean the whole album lead up was pretty short. This was like announced in August and then comes out in November, which I
Hmm.
imagine he wanted that. Um, but I think I really like this album. I'm excited to see what it comes out in the future. I think this was a very good turning point into some great albums we can expect from Colter, hopefully in the next coming years.
You summed it up better than I could. I agree with a lot of what you said. And yeah, I just love an album. I love any album that has like a comprehensive, cohesive theme and it's tied together both lyrically and with the music as well. And I thought this album did that all very nicely. It felt like an album and it feels like art when it feels like an album. It's not just like it's like the line in 1800 miles. What is it? If I ever was for sale, I never sold. I think Colter is pretty authentic and has remained that way throughout his career. Overall, I think a 4 out of 5 sounds pretty good. I might go 4.5 out of 5. But I haven't probably sat down and listened to as many albums in this genre as you have. So to me, it might stand out maybe a little more for that reason. I don't know.
Right, we're pulling Chris more out of indie folk in the country.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels good.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of which, we're going to continue that theme with next week's episode. I won't announce it quite yet. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube to see who we're going to be covering in that episode, but you can expect a uh similar type of artist to Coulter Wall. So, Ian, any last thoughts before we head out?
No, great album. Definitely go check it out.
Awesome. All right. Thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time on Old Moon Radio.